Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this program. Over the weekend, Nelson Chamisa had some of the senior members in his party launching the mobilization in preparation to launch the new party. He resigned from CCC as leader, as president of CCC on the 24th of January this year. That is hardly 2 weeks ago. And already he is preparing to launch a new party. Where is this going? Where is this circus going? To discuss the issue tonight, I've got Benjamin. Welcome to you, Benjamin.
Thank you for having me. Hello to all our viewers. Thank you for joining us.
Benjamin, where are we going here?
You know, I would like to give an example. It's the situation how I see it. You know that the engine for your car has seized, and then you decide to paint the body of the car to make it look new. It's definitely not going to go anywhere because it's dead, right? This is exactly what I think this whole launching of a new party. I mean, we have just launched. This will be the third or fourth party since, let's say, the beginning of MDC, right? And what has it delivered so far that we can actually say, okay, you know, this is like our people refer to it as saying it's the best food, going forward. I don't see anything that we can say we've made strides moving forward. In fact, we are no longer going in circles but going backwards. That's how I see it. I don't see any what launching a new party is going to do. Probably you could help me understand where this whole thing is going to take us.
Well, I must admit I am equally perplexed by the whole thing. I mean, Nelson Chamisa resigned from CCC on the 24th of January because he claimed CCC had been infiltrated and compromised by Zanu PF. And one has got to ask, how did that happen? Because one of the things that he said consistently ever since he launched CCC, which was 2 years ago, was that he was not going to have a party structure, he was not going to have a constitution, he was not going to have elected officials because he feared infiltration. And so he is now admitting that the very thing that he was trying to avoid, it actually happened. The party CCC was infiltrated to the point where it was hopeless. He had to resign from the party. And now he's ready to start another party. And the interesting thing about it is, which is one question, one of the many questions one could ask is, what has he done to stop the new party being infiltrated? Particularly if he's going with the same individuals whom he had in CCC, and they're going to go into the new party. How does that change anything? You know, if the deadwood were the problem, he's taking them to the new party. So nothing has changed here. I think this is really amazing, Benjamin. This is one of the annoying things about Zimbabwe politics. We're just going round and round in circles here.
I believe the biggest problem is that we have not held Chamisa to account for some of the statements that he says. Like you were saying just now, that he promised that he had put, all these bulletproof measures. But now we are seeing it looks as if the bulletproof was fake, because it hasn't even quenched any bullet whatsoever. He says he was going to win this election, yet bulletproof measures. We saw how Zanu PF rigged the elections at will. He says that he's not going to put structures. This will aid in with his party not being compromised, just like what had happened with the Mwanzoras. And the same thing just happened. Now he's going to form a new party. And what is the selection criteria? The selection criteria, to me, how I see it, is resign from parliament and you get a seat or in the new party. That is very simple. If you're a spy, you just give it up. You still get paid anyway by Zanu. If Zanu is infiltrating, which sometimes I think, we give Zanu so much credit, but it's just infighting for positions within, the Triple C. And I mean, some are actually saying he's just as a dictator as what is happening in Zanu PF. So it's a one-man show. I personally think that it is now our responsibility as Zimbabweans to challenge Chamisa to come and answer some of these questions. And you must be accountable to what he promises you and me, and not just say just because he decides to change at will, then we just follow. It shouldn't be like that. We are people that think. Let us also reason and find solutions at the end of the day. This of just following whatever he says, God is in it, and we all go. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Totally agree with you. As for the people who are joining him, this is in the picture. There is Advocate Fadzai Mahere. She is one of the MPs who have resigned since Chamisa resigned. And there have been a few others who have followed suit. Some of them were recalled in the first batch of recalls that Savangu carried out, and then second and first and second batch of recalls. So at the present moment, it looks like those who were really close to Chamisa and who know they could not switch sides and swear allegiance to the Savangu faction are the ones who have either resigned or are going to resign. Those who think they could switch allegiance, I think they will switch allegiance because they would want to hang on to their gravy train seats. And so this will mean that the old Triple C would still have these individuals led by Savangu, who is the some people say self-imposed Secretary General, and then the Chamisa. And even if he launches his own new party, I think we can be certain that there's going to be serious infighting over the assets. Because one of the things that some people have already been saying is that Chamisa is going to account for some of the monies that he got. So we are not seeing the end of it. We'll end up with a situation where we've got two factions of Triple C, and there will be a teacher that's throat for the next 5 years, up to the next elections. So what annoys me is the opposition is not going to help fight to end the Zanu PF dictatorship. They have already, by these recalls, allowed Zanu PF to have 2/3 majority. And with the more resignations, I'm sure Zanu PF is going to mop up a few more seats. So at the end of the day, we'll have a Zanu PF with a super majority for the next 4 years up to the coming elections in 2028. It's a hopeless situation, Benjamin. I think this is what is so disappointing. The launching of the new party is absolutely no meaning. It is not going to change anything.
You see, the timing is just like any other, any like the previous years. Let me say, when they lost the 2018 election, they came up with Triple C. This was supposing to be the new best thing, the kid on the block that was going to take us to the promised land. Here we are, it has died. Now they are forming another one, which will go campaigning again for the next, like what you said, until we get to the next election. And it's going to be promising a lot of fireworks. I don't see any change that is coming. I don't think right now, currently, I don't think Chamisa is the solution to Zimbabwe's problems. He will not deliver anything meaningful. That is what I believe. Firstly, if you look at his selection criteria, how is he going to stop what he perceives to be CIOs within the party structure or within his party? He's just simply just going to take those that have that have resigned to say, okay, you guys have pledged allegiance with me, let us go forward. What is to say that Zanu PF does not send some of them to say, resign, and we'll still pay you the amounts that you are going to get from sitting in parliament anyway? So I think it's just a waste of time. And I unfortunately, I was listening to recording from Brent or Brent. I'm not sure. Sorry if I did not get his name correctly, but he was saying something that I understood. That it's just a waste of time just to get us through to the next election, giving us that false hope, giving us that comfort that this time would be the very time that we are going to expect that miracle to happen, and we will get lost, and the process will be ongoing and ongoing until, I don't know, until we decide ourselves to stop being naive and see what is in front of us, the truth, and bring accountability, and ask Chamisa to be accountable for his utterances and his actions. I think that's our best way forward.
Yep. Well, I've just got there on the screen a comment from Sabuk Temba Muliswa. He was the MP of Norton, as some people may be aware of, the independent in the last parliament. And he lost the August election to Richard Changirai, the son of the late Morgan Changirai in Norton. And that is his view. The reality for men who have gone against Chamisa is that politically they are done. For some, it's their first and last term. And this is notwithstanding how brilliant they may be, they will never be forgiven by the people for seeming to aid the ruling party. What I find interesting in that comment, actually, Benjamin, is that here is somebody who seems to believe that Chamisa is innocent. You know, those who have gone against Chamisa, as if Chamisa is the benchmark, you know, not realizing that the problem here with our politics is actually the opposition themselves. People like Nelson Chamisa. Let's be honest here. These individuals have proven beyond all reasonable doubt that they are corrupt and incompetent. If anyone was following Zimbabwean politics, they would have known that the opposition had the golden opportunity to implement the democratic reforms which would have stopped Zanu PF rigging the elections during the GNU. They failed to implement even one reform, not even one. And ever since the GNU debacle, they've been participating in these flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, that participating will only give Zanu PF legitimacy. And they still persisted and participated. You know, I find this absolutely unbelievable. This naivety of people whom you would think could at least they've got some grace in their ears. It's unbelievable. I can't believe this. You know.
You know what is said with what I see from this statement? It just shows how Zimbabweans exercise blind loyalty. You know, it's no longer a case of are you good at what you are doing, but are you in the right standing with one character? Then where is the difference between Chamisa and those in Zanu PF? Long time ago, if you went against Mugabe, it was one way street for you. You are gone. So the same thing is being said for Chamisa, which I find, you know, it's very sad. We are taking one away and putting in the other, and the characteristics are pointing to the same thing, right? Chamisa right now, when he says that he did not want to have posts, he wanted to centralize power on himself. Where is the difference of that, what is happening in Zanu PF? And here we are, we want to put the exact same element, a replica, which is younger, unfortunately, that will take us another, 40, 50 years. Good. I mean, Chamisa, like, he's got age on his side. So he's going to want to pull. And with these same characteristics and these same traits, how can we blindly, be so loyal to an individual that is already showing what we're trying to remove? I find it unbelievable. It's unbelievable and very sad.
Well, I think this is really the tragedy of Zimbabwe, and in this particular case, I think it's also the failure to grasp the issues at the table. I think we need to explain to the Zimbabwean people what is it exactly we are trying to achieve here. In my view, one of the main reasons why we are in this mess is to start with Zanu PF betrayed the very values and beliefs of the fight for independence. The main thrust was that you want to end white colonial domination and oppression, so that everybody, all Zimbabweans, regardless of race, tribe, or whatever, will have the dignity of exercising their democratic right, including the right to have a meaningful say in the governance of the country. One man, one vote was at the center of the fight for independence. And yet, Zanu PF denied that right from the word go. In the last elections last year, even SADC in the AU said those elections were flawed. In other words, Zanu PF denied the ordinary Zimbabwean a meaningful say in the governance of the country. How are we going to get out of that mess? That is the problem that Zimbabweans have faced ever since our independence. And the solution was found in the late 1990s. We have to get an opposition that is going to implement the democratic reforms to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. And the opposition did get that chance during the GNU to implement the reforms. And they failed to implement even one reform. Why is it so difficult that many Zimbabweans out there have failed to grasp that simple idea that the opposition has failed to implement the reforms, and therefore then we need a competent opposition to implement those reforms? That is one thing that I cannot understand, Benjamin. I really find it very difficult to understand why it is so difficult for some people to understand such a simple idea.
You know, the sad, I know it's very sad. I also sometimes do wonder why we have failed ourselves to such an extent. You know, just the previous election, Chamisa was saying he's got countermeasures, he's got, plans in place, strategies, let me say, in place to conjure anything that Zanu PF will throw, against them. But we all know how that turned out. We are not doing the right thing, like you said. We are not doing the right thing. We need to first implement the democratic reforms that are needed for us to enjoy a free and fair and credible election. Not to go saying we are going to come up with, patches and try and plug all the loopholes, and it's Zanu PF is not going to stand still and let you just plug. They're going to come up with new and better methods. I mean, they've been doing this for a very long time. They are surely and truly good at it. And they have been proving that they're from time immemorial. So I think we are the ones that are selling ourselves short. We ought to really stop doing the same foolish thing over and over again. Once bitten, twice shy. Chamisa was on record saying that, the last time was the last time. This time it will never happen. We will never be beaten twice. And we know not if they've been beaten twice, but they've been beaten thrice now, because this time around they got beaten twice. They want something and they thought, they can go against. First of all, look, the SADC report stated that the elections did not meet any of the standards that were set, or any standard of a democratic election, whether is I don't know how to put it across, but they failed to deliver. And then you find Triple C Here they are with their MPs walking into parliament. What are they saying to the people that are actually saying that the elections were not free and fair? They are fighting on our side, but we turn them and say, no, 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 no. Because we invested our $1,000, we cannot let it go away. We have to go and stand. And some people are saying the will of the people. How can you say the elections were stolen and you say, because I won, it's the will of the people? I just do not, it does not make any sense any longer, you know. So it's just amazing, it's frustrating at the same time, just because I think Zimbabwe's biggest problem is two things for me. Is that us as Zimbabweans, us, we are very naive and we are easily sold to the highest bidder. We just go with the flow. And lastly, I think we need to look at what we perceive as an opposition. Is it competent enough? What are we looking for in an opposition? Let's not say that Chamisa is our only hope. No, no. Chamisa is not the only hope. There is hope out there. As long as we can put our act together and look forward, I think we will stand a better chance, and we'll be laughing at what foolish things we were doing for so long, believing in such foolish notions.
Well, just to comment on this issue of Chamisa is the only hope. What makes it an outrage is that Chamisa, if you understand what has been happening all along in Zimbabwe, particularly during the GNU, then you will know what the democratic reforms were all about. Secondly, how they were supposed to be implemented. And most important of all, how the MDC sold out big time by failing to implement even one reform. If you don't understand that, of course, you will not realize that MDC sold out. So the whole weakness then arises from the failure to understand what the GNU, what the reforms were about, and what the consequences of failing to implement those reforms are. And as long as you do not understand some of the basic issues, you really are not in a position to make a meaningful contribution to deciding the destiny of the country. You cannot keep on putting the same guy who is already proven to be corrupt and incompetent in a position of power, i.e., as the opposition, when they've already proven that they are corrupt and incompetent. This is why 23 years later, we still have not implemented even one meaningful reform. SADC, during the GNU, did their best to help get those reforms implemented. But they could not do so without the opposition playing their part. And if you do not understand that, you honestly have got a problem. I think one of the problems, Benjamin, I believe in Zimbabwe is that Zimbabweans have failed to understand that democracy, good governance, demands that the electorate should be well informed and should be very diligent to hold those in positions of power to account. We are trying to get good governance without a competent electorate. That is impossible. That is why we're going round and round in circles here. When somebody who clearly cannot understand that MDC failed to implement even one reform in 23 years can still turn around and say, oh, they are the best foot forward. Clearly, you have failed to understand what they were supposed to do. And now you're putting the same corrupt and incompetent individual in a position of power. You're just going round and round in circles here, Benjamin. I don't know whether you would want to make your closing remarks there, and we'll call it a night.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would also first like to agree with you, and that will be my conclusion, to say, you know, that is our biggest problem as Zimbabweans. I think we are letting ourselves down by not thinking for ourselves, by not asking ourselves the right questions, to say, Chamisa has been promising us all these things. Let us name one thing that he has delivered from all the promises. We don't want to start far as far as Changirai. That will be, you know, it'll be a longer case, because now we will, you know, we'll be having to dig deeper. But Chamisa has promised so much things from the time he has taken over from the late Changirai. What has he delivered? Right? Those are the questions that we must ask ourselves. What is he promising us? Is it something that is tangible? Is it something that, you know, we can measure to? Something we can relate? We don't want something where we are being promised bullet trains. Zimbabweans don't need bullet trains. Zimbabweans need, you know, to be lifted from poverty, you know, to have, you know, a decent life. Those are the things that need to be addressed. How is he going to accomplish them? It's different to say, I will do this, I will do this, and not have you know, a plan going forward. What is his plan going forward? Right? We need to ask him, now that you have formed another political party, what criteria have you used that is different from the one that, you know, that brought around all the CIOs? Because apparently everybody is a CIO that was in the leadership, which I really don't think so. I think it was just a matter of somebody wanting to grab all the power, centralizing everything, all decisions, everything. I mean, you could see he was the only one that was speaking there, and nobody else was speaking at the rallies. Surely that shows something that, you know, it's me, 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 me. You know. So I think as Zimbabweans, let us stop and ask ourselves the fundamental questions, right? Let us not just follow to say, just because he has said something that we like, we are going to go forward with it. How different are we from the ones that we say are in Zanu PF, that we deem are lost, that are of no hope, when we are doing exactly the same thing? I think that's that's a question that I can leave the people of Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I've got on the screen there the video of Brett. He is one Zimbabwean who has also commented extensively on some of these issues. Maybe tomorrow, Benjamin, if you're free, we will play some extracts from his recording and discuss them further. But I liked one of the things that he said, that if you look at what MDC, Triple C have done over the years, is actually they've not implemented any reforms, and they've only helped Zanu PF to stay in power by encouraging Zimbabweans to participate in flawed elections to give Zanu PF legitimacy. I think I have been saying the same thing myself. And so there I totally agree with him. He has gone one step further and said the opposition as it is presently constituted, they are nothing more than Zanu PF B team. And there is some truth in that, because there is no doubt that the opposition, Zanu PF has got them in their deep pockets. Even if some of the leaders are not double agents, but nonetheless, they're easily influenced by Zanu PF. And Zanu PF has got the resources to sweeten those decisions. If you do this, Zanu PF will help you with funding for that or the other, and they would have found it very difficult to resist. And most notably, Zanu PF has made it very difficult for the opposition to make the right decision. This issue of participating in flawed elections, knowing that the process is flawed, knowing that by participating you're giving Zanu PF legitimacy, and still nonetheless continuing to participate, is a serious problem. And Zanu PF has made that very difficult for the opposition to reject by making sure that those who do get elected get on the gravy train. Many of these MPs who are resigning now, they accepted those gravy train positions because they knew that as an MP, you get a 60,000 US dollar car allowance. And apparently now they are getting it every 2 years. And then you get a 40,000 housing allowance, US dollars. And then you get the generous salaries and allowances that these MPs get. Some of these individuals cannot resist that. And that is why they've been participating in flawed elections. And so we cannot deny Zanu PF's role in corrupting the system. So tomorrow, I think, I don't know whether, Benjamin, you are free, we could play some of the comments that Brett made and, explore it from there on.
Sure, no problem. I'd love to.
Yeah, otherwise, thanks very much for tonight's discussion. And I would like to thank the listeners there for joining us. And if you, in future, if you want to pass your comment, if you give me a comment there, you can leave your comment, and I can even also send you the link so that if you want to make a contribution, you can join in. I think this issue of Zimbabwe and where we are going has never been more uncertain than it is now. CCC is imploding. That is what is happening. And an imploding CCC is only going to be to the benefit of Zanu PF. The country, come 2028, is almost certain to go into another meaningless election process, which will only endorse Zanu PF's continued rule. This is the reality that we are facing, Benjamin. And
Yes.
again, thank you very much for coming tonight. And I think you can say good night to the listeners.
Thank you for having me, and to our viewers, thank you for joining, and good night. Pleasant view.
Thanks again, Benjamin, and thank you, everybody, and good night.